Thank you very much for coming today, Terri, and having a chat about your alternative reality gardening. You are a multidisciplinary practitioner. You've got a filmmaker, you're a creative director, a community activator, so many valuable things here in Northland. But on top of that, a New Zealand leader in terms of organic farming. And that's what you're actually talking about today, your alternative reality of organic farming. So you've got some things to say. I'm sure you're going to introduce yourself in a little bit more depth. And then we'll have a little chat afterwards, if that's all right with you.
Sounds fantastic, Maggie. Well, thank you. Welcome to my world of alternative reality gardening. I'd first like to thank Awhi World and for this opportunity to be part of this symposium and talk to you today. So, kia ora, as you've heard, my name is Terri, and I'm an organic dairy farmer. My partner Kenny and I milk 180 crossbred cows on 350 acres in the township of Maungaturoto in Northland, New Zealand. Now, the definition of an alternative reality is a reality that exists beyond the one we experience right now. But how does that relate to me? Well, farming today is a machine, an industry dominated by high inputs to try and make huge profits. The use of large amounts of synthetic fertilizers, supplement feeds, and high stocking rates comes at a cost, and the costs are high, both to the farmer and to the environment. That is today's farming reality, and it is neither healthy nor sustainable. Now, about 7 years ago, we decided that it was a reality we did not want to be part of, and we made a change, a mind shift, if you like, a new reality. Now, we know change is hard. Kenny's family has been farming this land since 1869, and conventional farming was all they knew. But for us, something about the industry, the way that we farmed, it just didn't sit well with us. We felt that we were the ones being farmed, and we decided to do something about it. So we decided to go organic. Now, what is organic? In our case, organic means a farm without the use of chemical fertilizers, antibiotics, pesticides, herbicides, and supplemental stock feeds like palm kernel. Now, this is where the gardening part comes in. The key to being an organic farmer, in my opinion, is to care for the soil. Now, just as you would in your own garden, you look after the soil. You feed it, you nurture it. You don't dig it too deep. You let it heal and replenish. And in turn, it will nurture and feed the plant life. It will allow the plant roots to go deep, allowing the moisture to be retained and utilised. It will store carbon, it will filter water and provide more biology in a teaspoon than all of humankind on the earth right now. And in most ecosystems, more life and diversity exist underground than above, which is why it is so important to protect our soils. The more biodiversity present in the system, the more resilient that system will be and more resistant it will be to change or external pressures. Healthy soil leads to healthy plants. Typically, farm pastures are a monoculture of ryegrass with a bit of clover mixed in. And this is what conventionally we feed our cows, with a bit of palm kernel thrown in. Imagine eating lettuce and chocolate every day for your entire life. Yes, you would survive, but how healthy would you be? To be healthy and thriving, we all need variety. And if we have a proper diet, we will be. But when we lack nutrition in our diets, we become unhealthy. And cows are no different. The principles of organic farming and pasture is to have an abundance of plant species in our pasture, creating a healthy salad, not only for the animals to eat, and not only for them to get nutrition, but to keep them healthy and also produce quality milk. Now, another benefit to healthy soils is the lack of weeds, or as we call it, an undesirable plant growing in the wrong place. Really, there are no weeds. As much of what is defined as a weed sometimes has medicinal properties for the stock. Animals, unlike us, have not lost the ability to self-medicate and will eat plants that they know they need to make them feel better. So things like willow, poplar, and flax, which leads to the importance of trees. Now, the term green desert is how I describe many of today's conventional farms. Green paddocks devoid of trees and in turn lacking an abundance of life. And that's what comes from having them. As an organic farmer, we see trees as a vital part of our farm, an ecosystem of roots, plants, insect life. Trees have many key roles on the land. They provide shelter and homes. Deciduous trees feed the soil, and the roots help bring up nutrients and protect our soil from erosion. Over the years, we have planted thousands of trees and will continue to add a couple of thousand each year as the need to create succession planting has become all too obvious recently. We plant a variety of trees, from natives to ornaments and fruit trees, with the principle that different trees provide different benefits at different times of the year to the whole ecosystem. Now, in a way, we are just letting nature do what she has always done. And if you allow everything to work in a symbiotic way, there is a natural balance that is beneficial to all. Now, birds and insects are also important and beneficial to our ecosystem. Allowing opportunities for the good bird and the insect life to flourish helps keep the bad insects away before they get a chance to damage plant life. We also plant a couple of paddocks each year with a diverse crop. Now, this will have a plethora of edible plant species such as sunflowers, peas, chicory, and corn. We try to plant a crop that not only feeds the nutritional needs of the stock, but supports us as well as the bird and the insect life. Watching hundreds of bumblebees working amongst the sunflowers is absolute joy to behold. Now, to enable better systems on our farm, we also decided to destock and move to once-a-day milking systems. Having less cows instantly had a positive effect. There was less pressure on the land, inputs on the land decreased, and we had less stress and more time to utilise on other projects on the farm. And we noticed the difference in our cows straight away. They are calmer, healthier, and happier. Now, you're thinking, how is this too much alternative? Well, this is very alternative than the traditional farming method. The typical farming method puts profit first. But like I always say, if you get the basics right, like healthy soils, profit becomes the goal and not the result of getting everything right. That is our alternative reality. I look to the world markets, and every day people are becoming more and more aware of what is in their food and how their food is produced. They want ethical and environmentally responsible methods of food production. And as the world consumers move to a more sustainable product base, producers like us will need to adapt and change or face being left behind. In a way, you could say the alternative reality I live in may become the new normal, and the chemically produced foods will then become the alternative garden reality. But back to our reality. If there's one thing being an organic farmer has taught me, it's to be observant, to pay attention to everything around me as I look around the farm, to look, to listen, to feel, and to smell. There is so much to learn. And that is one of the things I love most about being an organic farmer. It's the opportunity to never stop learning. We are learning every moment of every day. We are experimenting, and it is not a wrong thing to experiment. If something doesn't work, that's okay. We just try something different next year. You just keep learning. Now, over the last few years, I have watched the land heal. I've seen soil compacted by overuse or crumbling away because of the inadequate biology, turn into nutrient-dense soil, capable of growing healthy plants and bursting with life in all forms of worms and biodiversity. I have watched batches of ground once covered by weeds turn into healthy pasture. I have seen the bird and the insect life grow. And we now have rare birds on the farm, like the bittern, and they are living in parts of our farm that we have allowed nature to return to wetland. I watch the creeks when it rains and observe the natural waterways and retire those parts of the farm. We plant pockets of trees to help create corridors for our native birds, because if anyone has ever watched a native bird, know that they fly short distances, so they need pockets to be able to move around the farm. And I have also observed the water in our dam become clearer as the soils become healthier and filter the water that passes through it. I have also noticed a big change in myself. I am now excited about the future of farming. I once wasn't. I never used to be proud to be a farmer. I just was a farmer. But now I am passionate about the opportunities that organic can provide. And I love watching the changes that is happening as we move forward. And I love sharing the knowledge that we learn. And I'm actually more excited that people are hungry for the information and want to know about what we're doing on our farm. Our way of farming, and even our way of thinking for that matter, often does seem a very different reality from our conventional neighbours. Many of them seem to struggle with the concept of organics. The idea that you can farm and make a profit with low inputs is alien to them. The idea that you can farm without synthetic inputs is considered almost crazy. And even with all the positive outcomes that we have year after year, it is still seen as some sort of luck. Now, I've asked the question, if we are getting such good results year after year, when does it stop becoming luck? And when does it become good management? It is an answer I have yet to have an answer from. But I did say change was hard. And for many, it's just a bridge too far. And for those who for many years have been told how, where, why, and when, they are stuck on a hamster wheel. They cannot get off or will not get off. And all we can do is we can't tell them how to farm, but we can show them a little bit of our universe, our alternative reality, and maybe, just maybe, they would like to join us.
Terri, what do you think is the biggest barrier to other farmers in our region adopting the point of view? I mean, obviously there's an ideological barrier, but what are the other barriers that could be removed, or are the preventing points that mean that there's not as many organic farmers as there could be?
Well, as you've got, the first one is this. This is the biggest barrier to overcome, the perception of what organic is. And what we've been told, a lot of misinformation is out there. So when people ask for organic, a couple of the questions we get is, oh, I've heard it's really expensive to become an organic farmer. I don't know where that comes from. Or, oh, your farm's going to be covered in weeds and you're going to have all these health problems. But it's actually the opposite. Our farm doesn't have weeds because as the soil becomes healthier, those conditions for those plants to grow aren't there. The weeds are a product of an environment that's perfect for them. So if you take away the perfect environment for a weed, it won't grow. So that's probably, misinformation is probably the biggest one. And not knowing. Once you get people on the land and show them the results, the cogs start tuning. Yeah.
Mm-mm. Is there a trend for people to be adopting this particular practice? Like, are you noticing, or is there statistics saying that more farmers are adopting this, or is it a sort of static situation in Northland and you're still an outlier very much?
Our area, we've actually got quite a few people going organic. We've got some that are just starting to convert, and 3 or 4 that actually have become organic in our area, which is really exciting. Barriers, though, it's still down to perception. Moving forward, anyone could become organic, but people are on that treadmill and they don't. Maybe within the information, it's also lack of information. I think that's probably, yeah. That's probably not answering the question, isn't it?
No, it does in a way. I guess what you're saying is in the area around you, there's been some change. So I guess where would the information come from in your industry? Like, I'm always thinking about alternative realities and how people can, cross disciplines or learn about new cultures. Where does that happen? Obviously, you're a bit of an influencer, if we'll use that word.
Mm-hmm.
And there's obviously some people who are connecting and networking. So there's some kind of, I hate to use the word again, organic change happening in 2 different senses of the word. But is there something that that civic organisations need to do, or is there something happening in terms of the training that young farmers get these days? Like, where does that other wave of change activation happen, do you think?
So a lot of the issues within farming is the information that gets filtered down through. That comes down from big companies. So you've got your fertiliser companies and the banks at the top. And if you look at any university that's teaching our young people how to become a farmer, it's heavily subsidised by those companies. So the information that comes down from them is that old way that you've got to use chemical fertilizers. You got to have all this. You got to go big because that's the only way to farm. So really, there's a system that's broken at the top to get it to filter down. And then even when you read the papers and you've got certain people in the paper who are poo-pooing organics and promoting conventional farming. Well, if you look at where they are, they're on the board of all these chemical fertilizer places, or they work for the banks. So there is a systematic problem in there. Also, there is also a perception that you can go, there's this lovely new word that's called, regenerative farming that's come out lately. And a lot of people going, oh, but I'm regenerative, I'm going regenerative. Well, the thing with regenerative, it's only a half step. And I think initially when it came in, the idea was people would go regenerative and see that they can use those principles, then they'll take the next step to organic. But that's not the case. People are going regenerative and stopping there, and you're still using chemicals, you're still using those methods. It's only half pie. So, I think those are a couple of the barriers. But, so misinformation and not a proper flow of information coming from the bottom up. It's all coming from the top down.
One of the things that the Alternative Reality Gardening series of publications and Symposium, one of the underlying purposes is about reconnecting our region to, I guess, internationally, because we've had so many rain events, as you probably more than most people realise, Terri, the cyclones, we've had multiple kind of weather things happening because of climate change, and we've also had the pandemic where we were literally cut off from the rest of the country when Auckland went into lockdown for a series of months. So communication-wise, our region is very, very vulnerable compared to others because the standard of the roads is so low. We have a major weather event, there's slips and everything. What are you doing in terms of your farming practices to kind of build resilience or to support resilience going forward? Because obviously with climate change and various other things, it's going to become challenging to get your goods to market. And how does that happen? And how do you think about that?
Yeah, so you've hit that keyword resilience, and the farming community are very big on saying that they're resilient. And if that storm and what's happened this year has taught us, the farming community is not resilient, not at all. It's actually totally the opposite. We had a storm and we had no power. I know farmers around who didn't milk their cows for a whole week, and that's not good. What we are doing, we are a small farm. So a small farm is manageable. So we've got 180 cows. So because we've got an old-fashioned small shed, we could hook up the PTO from our tractor onto our shed. We could milk our cows every day. And if we couldn't send the milk, well, you can feed your cows that, you can put it on the pasture, or you can ask your neighbours to come and help themselves, which you're not meant to do, but needs be in those times. Also, because we are doing all that planting on the farm, the damage to the land itself was nowhere near as much as you saw down in places like Tarawhiti, where big trees, and there was actually a really good episode on Country Calendar of one of the farms that had lived in that area but were untouched because they had been doing succession planting of trees. Now, those who had done that one big plant of trees, there's that big thing, we've done our 10,000 trees, we've done our piece. The idea of that, which is wrong, is you plant those 10,000 trees, they all grow, you have a storm, they all topple over, and there's nothing to come behind them. So the idea is to plant those succession planting, and that's why we're doing it. So if something happens to one lot, you've got another lot right behind him. So you look around a lot of farms in the Kaipara, and maybe 100 years ago, they planted a whole lot of macrocarpus. Now, most of those fell down in there, and no one's done any planting for 100 years. So now we've got farms around here with completely devoid of things such as trees. So things like that make us resilient. And then low inputs, of course, we have to provide all the food on the farm for the cows. If we do get something external, it has to be certified organic. So pretty much our silage and hay is from here. So if we can't get external factors, we can feed our stock. We have less cows, so we can feed them. Those big farms couldn't get an extra food. They couldn't get in palm kernel, so those cows didn't get fed. So there's all those sort of layers. So the idea with organic is small. You can go big, but it's better to be small, more resilient, and just thinking about worst case scenarios all the time, pretty much, and hoping for the best.
Terri, do you sell your produce locally primarily, or do you send it to other parts of New Zealand? What is your reach in terms of your supply chain?
So
not supply chain, your delivery chain.
Yeah, so we supply Fonterra. There's 81 organic farmers around New Zealand that supply Fonterra, like us, our milk goes directly overseas. None of it goes to New Zealand. So what we have is, within organics, there is 2 different certifications. We are EU, which is the top. So our milk goes to places like Canada. America's our biggest one. They love us over there, California and down that coast. We also supply Korea, a little bit of a few other places, but those are our main markets. So it all goes over there, and it's sort of promoted more of as a health food than just a generalised food. So 3 years to become certified. The New Zealand market, the EU one that you get here, is only 2 years and may still have traces of chemicals and stuff in it. So yeah, we're pretty proud of being NOP, is what we are.
Well, an international person for our international symposium. Thank you very much, Terri. And I really, really appreciate you coming. I know you've got a busy day at the moment, but it's nice to hear a little bit about what's happening in your world. And certainly it's good to be seeing that people are pushing against the trend and really doing things that are building resilience in our community. So much appreciated.
Yeah, no worries. It's exciting that people are curious. We actually do tours on the farm now. We've got cruise ship season coming up, and we've got at least 3 tours booked in from cruise ships, international visitors. They want to know what we're doing. So it just goes to show that the world demands and wants to know about it. So New Zealand is very close to going behind the 8 ball. I think conventional farming as we know it is actually a sunset industry. And like I stated in my talk, I think that will become the alternative garden reality as organics becomes more mainstream and people become more aware of that, what they want to eat and have in their homes and give to their children.